Most Erasmus Mundus joint master's programs have already closed their scholarship application periods or are actually imminently closing. And so if you're listening to this video, then you definitely are a candidate who would want to apply for Erasmus Mundus joint master's scholarship for you to begin your studies in 2027. My name is Ndutawambura. I am a study abroad consultant. And so please go ahead and listen up to this video until the very last minute, because there are some really important pointers that you need to realize if you want to apply for this scholarship come October of this year for you to begin studying in September of 2027. Now, first things first, I hear of several people confusing Erasmus with Erasmus Mundus joint master's programs, and I would want to make this very clear. Erasmus Plus as a whole umbrella has got several programs, and some of the programs are usually inclusive of university exchange programs for a short period of time, say like 3 months or 6 months within the European continent. And these are only open to students who, for instance, are maybe in the undergraduate or their master's, programs, and can go to any other European, university that has got some sort of collaboration with their faculty for like a period of 3 months, 6 months, and so on and so forth. And so this is usually vested within the European universities, and it's not open globally. It is for anyone who is already enrolled in a European university and can be able to go for such an exchange programs. The parameters for Erasmus Mundus joint master's program are very different, and Erasmus Mundus joint master's program is a flagship of the European Commission that is managed by a body known as EACEA, and this body is the one that is able to manage the programs that you see on the Erasmus Mundus joint master's catalog, which we are going to talk about in a few minutes. Now, Erasmus Mundus joint master's programs are open to anyone across the globe. There is no age limit for these programs, as long as you can prove that your skill set as well as your experiences, any volunteer experiences, work experiences, project experiences, name it, that you actually qualify for any one of the programs that is listed on the program catalog. Now, this program catalog can change quite a bit, and obviously this is dependent on the funding of the programs and is updated regularly as soon as the program starts opening for applications, which is usually towards the end of September, let's say October, and with a caveat of around January. Some actually close in February, and some are actually only closing now in March. So you can definitely go ahead and browse through that catalog to be able to see exactly which program you might as well fit in and apply for come October of 2026. Now, if you're listening to this and you're just about to complete your undergraduate studies, this is a perfect time for you to do that search and see exactly what you would qualify for. And in fact, if you would be graduating this year, then you can plan to have your degree certificates and your transcripts ready in hand as you prepare to apply for these scholarships. Now, in 2026, obviously, things have quite been a roller coaster, and there are a few changes that you really need to be aware of. First of all, Erasmus Mundus joint master's programs are fully funded. It is not a scam. I am a beneficiary of Erasmus Mundus scholarships, and they are not a scam whatsoever, because I have seen quite a number of questions out there questioning whether this is for real or not. First of all, your tuition fee is waived completely. You do have insurance as you study for the period of 2 years, and in fact you study in various universities, a minimum of now 3 universities or even 2 universities for some programs that are older, and you can be able to study for those 2 years, moving from one country to the other, and that way all the credits that you earn in all these universities that you will go to, as well as internships, are then aggregated into the degree that you will graduate in. And in any case, most of the programs usually issue certificates for each of the universities that you will go to. Every program has their own way of doing things, but I have seen several of the programs issuing certificates for each of the universities that you will study in. So to give you a glimpse of this is that you will, for instance, maybe apply for a program that involves a university in Portugal, another university in Spain, another university in Germany, maybe another university in Finland. So which will mean that during your first semester, you will go maybe to Portugal. You guys, the whole cohort will go to Portugal. Then after that, you potentially might go to Germany, depending obviously also on the specialization that you guys have, have in your program. You will then go to maybe Finland, or whichever the country that you guys would choose, once again depending on the study track. And then after that, for your fourth semester, which is your thesis semester, you can potentially go to any one of those countries that you have already been into. For instance, maybe go back to Portugal, maybe because of your supervisor, or go to Germany because of your supervisor, depending again on the type of agreement that you have with your program. This is going to be for a period of 2 years. And during this 2 years, you are fully funded, which means that your tuition fee is waived. You have insurance for the whole period of your studies. You also do have a monthly stipend that is 1,400 euros per month, which is remitted to your bank account. And this is the money that is supposed to cater for your transport, cater for your food, cater for your accommodation, cater for your daily life. And this potentially is supposed to be what we call a student fund, which means that obviously things like accommodation, you would be finding a student accommodation. You would have a budget, a student budget that covers you within that parameters. Obviously, some cities, for some, universities, you will go to some cities which are cheaper than the others, which I always talk about financial management, because some of the places which will be cheaper, it would be very useful for you to save up so that you can be able to, cater for yourself in the most expensive of the cities within the European continent, because it really is very dependent on, which city you go to, and the cost of living, the cost of accommodation, the cost of food, the cost of transport, name it all, because you're also living in that country. One other thing that I also want to make very clear is that Erasmus Mundus joint masters programs are usually conducted in English. However, since you will be going to any one of those countries that I have mentioned, within the European continent, none of them are English. English is not their first language, which will mean that you will have the opportunity to learn a new language in any one of these countries. And this is usually a provision that is given by the programs themselves, and you can learn the language within the university or within the communities. There are several places that you can actually check out and see what language classes they have, and with this you can be able to learn a new language which sets you apart for your future, that also helps you to answer the question about what next. And speak about learning a new language, I before moving abroad myself, I realized something very quickly, that language opens doors. And I speak English, Swahili, Kikuyu, and Portuguese. And every single language has helped me connect with people, navigate new places, and feel more at home abroad. If you're preparing for Erasmus or planning to study abroad, this is why I recommend Preply, who are also sponsoring this part of the video. Preply connects you with real tutors from around the world, so you can practice languages one-on-one online, even ahead of time before you actually go to study your Erasmus program. Whether you're going to learn in English, Spanish would be one of the languages that you could potentially learn if, one of the countries that is involved is Spain. Brushing up on your French would set you apart even to work in Francophone countries, or starting Portuguese would set you apart to go and move into a Lusophone speaking country. And you can find a tutor that fits your schedule and your learning style on Preply. And the best part is that you're learning with actual conversations, which is the best and fastest way to become confident in any new language, if you ask me. So if you're preparing to study abroad, I've included a link in the description where you can get a discount on your first lesson with Preply. And trust me, future you living abroad will thank you for learning a language even with somebody who actually understands it completely. It is now in March of 2026, and like I mentioned, is that the programs will start opening in October of 2026, or the end of September rather of 2026, and usually they have a window within which they open. Each program has their own specific window, their own specific requirements, their own specific criteria, selection criteria, and so on and so forth. So now you listening to this in March gives you quite the edge, because you can now start preparing ahead of time, so that you can be one of the people who gives in or submits a very good application. Now we're in March, and maybe your program you have seen on your catalog, because the first thing that I would want you to do is to go to the Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters catalog and check through each and every page to see and identify which programs you might want to apply for. And these programs could obviously, they have to be within your skill sets as well as your experiences, because you don't want to be applying for things that, maybe you're, you studied business and you have been in IT, but then you want to apply for agriculture. You really have to, justify that type of gap, obviously, depending on what, you have been doing. So we want to stick within your skill sets and experiences. There is no limit. There's no longer a limit of how many programs that you can apply for, because this caveat was removed due to administrative issues. Before, it used to be that you can only apply for 3 programs, but now you can apply for more. However, these programs have to really meet your experience as well as your skill set. Now, the first things first, you have gone through the catalog and taken your time, not brushing through and using the filter, because the filters sometimes on that catalog do not work very well. So what I would recommend is going to page by page by page by page by page to see exactly which of the programs that you might want to take. One thing that you will also notice on that catalog is that the links might have shifted a little bit, and you will notice that the title is where you will go to the program link that will redirect you to the program link, and on this program link is where you will find the admission criteria, the documents that are required, the selection criteria, as well as contact page. You will also find news, especially for the programs that have already been existing. They will list things that they have been up to, so that you can be able to understand exactly what the program is about. You will also find social media links, so you can follow these programs online, and whenever they have things like webinars, you can follow through and ask relevant questions directly on such webinars. And so this is very important. So you will find out that the title page is now what is redirecting you to the program page. And right below it is another link that gives you the program information. And this is a very important link, because it lets you know exactly when this program was funded, from when it was funded, and potentially, the period within which it has been funded already. And this information is very crucial, because it lets you know maybe if this program is, going to stop its funding within a very short period of time. So potentially, if maybe you're not ready to start applying for your for that program this year, maybe you'll be ready next year, then you can be able to know whether that program might potentially be open next year. We have no way of knowing, because some of these programs actually sometimes explicitly say on their program websites that they are no longer going to be funded by Erasmus until a certain date. Some don't actually necessarily state this explicitly. So the program page gives you this information to a certain extent. This can potentially change come September or October, so you have to be on the lookout for that. Now, if a program is no longer being funded by Erasmus, it also gives you information of other types of funding that you could potentially apply for the same program, which means that, you have other scholarships that have been enlisted on the program website, which you can still apply for. There is also the option of self-funded programs, which is very crucial because if you are able to foot for the tuition fees, then you can apply as a self-funded student and in fact calculate the cost of how much it will be for that whole program. And in some cases, actually, some of these programs, if you speak to them, they can give you a one-time, one-off stipend, which you can utilize for the duration of your program as you continue to go into the various countries. It's not easy because at some point you would need to potentially maybe work if you don't have enough funding. So this is also a risk, but it is also doable if you, calculate the cost and see that, hey, you know what, I can do a self-funded basis and I will apply for that already. In fact, since we are in March, some of the programs still do have their self-funded options still very much open. So if you're interested in that, go ahead again and check out throughout the catalog for the program that you're interested in so that you can be able to identify which ones you might want to apply for. Now, since you have already identified the programs that you want to apply for as of now, the next thing to check, which is very crucial, and this is always enlisted on the program website, is the documentation that is required of you. Now, the documentation from one program to another, for some, some of these documents are very generic across all the programs, but for some of the programs, they're very specific on exactly what you need to submit as a relevant document that for you to be considered for this type of scholarship. So generic wise, you definitely need your degree certificate, you need your transcripts, you need a motivation letter, you need recommendation letters that are on official letterheads or emails of referees from which the program can reach out to those referees and they can request for them to send a letter saying that you're an excellent candidate. We do also have things to do with residency certificates. For some nowadays, they don't necessarily ask for this. We do have English language tests. For some programs, they do now accept, and explicitly say on their program websites that they will accept a letter from your university stating that you actually studied in English, which is excellent. For some, they explicitly say that they would not accept this and you would need to do an English language test. Others will say that, there are several other tests that they do accept. Some can be easy to find, others can be quite expensive to find. So this is an excellent time to do an English test if at all you find out that there's a certain program that you're very much interested in and you would want to, go ahead and shoot your shot for it. This would be the excellent time to go ahead and book an English language test wherever it is that you are and be able to sit for it, and the results are out such that you're ahead of time and you can be able to upload these results once the program actually opens. Other documentation that you might definitely need is obviously your passport. You would need to also show that, some of them actually ask for a thesis statement. For some, for instance, journalism programs, they will ask for media work. For others that are technology based, they might want to know, what is your portfolio. They might ask for your GitHub link or such kind of things. So read very carefully what are the documents that are needed. And in any case, this does not change once the programs reopen for application. So this is an excellent time to start preparing for your documents. Don't wait until the very last minute, because you will rush the very last minute and you will wonder, what exactly should I do at this point in time? For the residence certificate, it's very important to actually go ahead and, ask your area chief, or some people actually ask their employers to give this residence certificate. You can also ask a lawyer to write a letter saying that you have been living at a certain area. You can also use a utility bill, for instance, a water bill, an electricity bill, or whatever it is, as long as your name is on that bill and can be verified that you live in that particular address. So these documents are very crucial for you to read. The next very important thing that you need to read on those program websites, whichever that you have chosen, is the selection criteria. So the selection criteria will give you an aggregate percentage of what exactly is a program going to be looking for. For some, they might say, we will look at the motivation statement and we will grade it up to 40%, which means 40% is the maximum. And we will also check maybe your degree certificates. They will give you 10% or 20%. We will also check, work that you have done, experiences that you have, and we will rate it at a certain percentage. And then they will tell you, maybe we have an interview that is going to also be like 20%, and so on and so forth. So the selection criteria gives you a leeway to understand exactly what is it that you're going to be looking at and where you need to put in more weight as compared to other places. Now, one other thing that I also need to mention here is your CV is going to be very important. And in fact, what you say on your CV and what you say on your motivation statement and what you say on your experiences and your general application needs to be consistent, because you might say one thing on your application and then come, during the interview, and then you're saying something very contradictory. That is not going to work very well for you. Now, your CV also needs to be on Europass format. I have spoken about Europass format on this channel before, so go ahead and check that video. It is free to actually redo your CV on Europass format on that website. So you definitely just need to log in, sign up, log in, and put in all the details that are relevant towards that program. Some people have asked me this question before, whether I need a CV for each and every different program that I apply for, and I say yes, because the skill set and the experiences and the things that you studied for each and every one of these programs is very, very different. So you do need to have this difference on your CVs. Now, another thing that you obviously want to, understand on these program websites is, what exactly is it that you're going to be studying? Is it relevant to you, even to your what next? What is the mobility like? What are the study tracks looking like? If at all a program is very specific on the study track that you choose, maybe there are several study tracks in a certain program. And for some, during your motivation, you do need to justify the reason as to why you chose one study track over the other. And this is a very important point. Anything else that you need to check on this website, like I mentioned, is any social media links. You might follow these programs on, social media. You might see webinars that have been done before, and they can be very helpful towards your application. You can reach out to the program. If anything is unclear and very specific to that program, you can always reach out to them, and yes, they do answer. Now, since Erasmus Mundus joint master's programs are actually quite competitive, and as you may have already have heard, that they are very they're fully funded, which means that everybody else who is competing across the globe has to really meet the criteria and the standards towards those applications, which means that you cannot go wrong on the documentation, you cannot go wrong on the motivation, the selection criteria. Now, these are quick fire ways for you to be, disqualified. And one of the things that I always talk about is the motivation. The motivation is always going to be your make or break. And I have gone through several of these programs, and I always see that, the motivation or or the reason as to why you and not everybody else that is applying across the globe, why you is always, one of the things that is very, very crucial across the board for all the programs. So it's very important for you to think about your motivation very clearly. And think about what exactly you want to write there, because you might have achieved quite a lot, but not everything is relevant. And I have spoken about your motivation statement on this channel. So please go ahead and watch it so that you can know exactly what to write. I usually also do an audit of documents, so you can always book, using the links on the description box below. And you can book for me to check your documentation and see whether it is correct, whether you have written the right thing. On your motivation statement, don't just write that you are poor and you want a scholarship. No, that's not the way. Tell them exactly what you have done despite your circumstances. What have you done with, your poor status? Because everybody is going to say they are poor across the globe, right? Tell them what you have done that sets you apart as a candidate, because it's not just the fact that you're going to do this scholarship. It's also about what value are you also adding to this scholarship, and what exactly is it that you're going to do with this study as soon as you complete. Feel free to explicitly say that you would want to do a PhD, or you would want to pursue, work within the European continent, or you would want to maybe potentially go back to your own home country and conduct whatever the, things that you used to do back then. So it's okay to explicitly say your what next on these applications, and it's in fact very, 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 very important to do so. Now, once you have gone through all this information, it's quite a lot to digest. So it's important to take your time, and you have time between now, March, and all the way to September. You have time to take a moment every other single week. You can say, I'm going to dedicate, say 3 hours or 4 hours to just go through each and every one of the requirements and all these kind of things, and start writing my motivation towards these programs. And also have somebody look at your motivation, have somebody look at your application, because you might think that, I know exactly what I need to do. I have ChatGPT, I have, I don't know, Gemini, whatever AI that I have, a tool that I have that can utilize, and, this is going to work out for me. I will tell you for free that these programs, they do have AI detection systems. So you don't want to over rely on AI and just leave it at that. They are the things that they are definitely looking at, and the selection committees are very keen on exactly what they are looking at on any of these programs. So you want to be very careful with that. Now, once you have already gone through all this information and you're digesting it, and you have identified which programs that you would want to apply for, it is time for you to earmark exactly which deadlines that you have. And in fact, what I usually say, just create an Excel sheet and see which deadlines are where and what you need to do next. And then you can design your action points immediately. And your action points would be things to do with, collecting documentation. Maybe there are some documents that you need to actually apply for with your government back in your own home country. There are some things that you need to speak to a referee and create the rapport. If you don't have any referee, then you need to maybe go back to your university, speak to your professor, speak to a supervisor, or whoever it is, somebody who can write a really good letter for you and vouch for you as a good candidate for these programs. It is also important for you to spread your wings as far and wide as possible. I usually say, don't just apply for Erasmus, apply for any other programs that you might want to also take. It's also important for you to have the mindset that, yes, you can be rejected. I was rejected the first time that I applied for Erasmus, and I had to apply for the second time, and that's when I was picked out. And so it's important for you to realize that this is not the end all be all type of situation. You definitely want to, spread your wings as far and wide as possible, and also realize that there are several other scholarships that are within the European continent. There are several other programs that, are invested within various countries that I have spoken about, and I will keep speaking speaking about on this channel. So if you want to do an audit call with me, please get the consultation link down below, and you can be able to, understand exactly what you can study as a student, as a master student, and so on and so forth. One thing that is also very important for you to realize is that in 2026 and going beyond is that the funding for Erasmus keeps on expanding, and luckily enough, there are no cuts that have been done within Erasmus. In fact, there is a lot of expansion that has been done. However, the investment on things like AI, green energy, cybersecurity is very evident even on that program catalog, because you will see that on that program catalog, as much as obviously the names are very European oriented, is that each and every one of those programs, most of the programs actually are very much green energy oriented, climate change, cybersecurity, AI, all these kind of things that are very relevant within this period of time that we are living in. And if you missed a video that I did about, whether it is worth doing a master's program in 2026, please go ahead and watch it so that you can get the gist of exactly what I mean by it's very crucial for you to be applying for a program that is going to be very helpful for you in the near future. What this means is that not just doing a program for the sake of doing it, is with a very clear cut way of, I want to end up in this field, and so I want to get these skills so that I can be able to utilize them in field A, B, C, D, E, or I can go ahead and do a PhD, maybe end up in academia, perhaps go back to my own home country and conduct, various things that I used to do and affect change that way. So it's very important to, as much as it's fluffy and nice and warm, to apply for a scholarship and just get out of your own home country with a scholarship. It's also very crucial to realize that, yes, it's important to be clear on exactly where you want to end up in. Now, another thing that is also very important at this juncture is to mention that Erasmus Mundus joint masters, it is master's programs, which means that this is not funding an undergraduate, it's not funding a PhD, it is master's program. This is not to mean that the European Union does not fund, undergraduates as well as PhD programs, but it is not under, Erasmus. So what that means is that, for instance, if you want to do a PhD program, there are other funding options that you can look out for. For instance, Horizon 2020. We have other programs, for instance, under Marie Curie fellowships and so on and so forth. And this can be found on a website that I completely always share. Is called Euraccess, and these can be like opportunities, could be PhD opportunities, could be job opportunities, could be research opportunities, and so on and so forth. And they could be potentially the best options for you for PhD or a postdoc. So this is crucial for you to check on the Euraccess website. There are other websites that I've spoken about here. Could be Find a PhD, could be academicpositions.eu, and so on and so forth. So on that sector of PhDs, then you can be able to look out for that. You could also be able to look out for a PhD program if you're doing a master's program and you have a supervisor who is excellent and has a research group. You can apply to be in their research group as soon as you are almost completing your master's program. You can also look out for other programs that are outside the European continent. And the good thing about Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters Program is that if you're a successful candidate, there is no caveat for you that you need to go back to your own home country. It is okay to integrate through into the European system and work, or continue your studies, or go back to your own home country, whichever you prefer. Now, this is very important for you to realize. The thing is, these are very competitive programs, and you really need to bring your A game so that you stand out as an excellent candidate. And no, this is not just for, people who have done who have the first class honors. It is also for people who with second class honors, upper division, and even for some lower division, as long as you prove that you have the right experience that is, relevant towards a certain program. Now, I have seen a lot of Nigerian folks asking about their HND, whether it actually qualifies. This is not necessarily very extremely true because it's very dependent on a program. So what I would want you to do is, if you have a HND, please explicitly write to a program asking whether they would consider that HND as part of the experiences that is, qualified as, part of what is needed for a certain program. This is very dependent on a program, and a program can say yes or no if at all they assess your qualifications and see whether they are sufficient for your program. Erasmus can also be your second master's. It can be your first master's. In fact, it was my second master's degree, so it's okay to do it as a second master's. It's okay if you already even have a PhD. They have seen some people who have PhDs who, now want to do a master's, and this, sets them apart in a certain type of way, and especially if they are in fields which require for them to have an extra number of skills. This is excellent for you. You don't necessarily have to have publications. I have seen this question quite a lot of times. Do I need to have a publication for me to be able to qualify? Not necessarily. Publications are usually very crucial. For instance, in journalism or anything within the IT field, then they would need specifics of what exactly have you done before that is making you an excellent candidate for you to apply for this program. Now, this is a lot of information to digest, but I know that you do have time. We are in March, and so you have quite a bit of time to digest this information slowly by slowly. What I would say is that if you need a pep talk, I am here to give you that pep talk, so you can always book a consultation with me. On the description box below, I do have links on how you can reach out to me, and I can definitely answer each and every one of the questions that you might have. Have this in mind, that this is an investment of time as well as, energy that you are giving for you to begin studying in 2027. Because if you're applying for programs that are reopening within this year, it would mean that you will be applying for programs that will start reopening from October of 2026, and the application period, finishes around January, February, March, depending on the program. And after that, as soon as the application period is closed, then they will start, reviewing. The committees, the selection committees sit down and check the programs, and they will see exactly who is a good candidate, etc. And then they will give their, verdict as soon as possible, sometimes in March, April, going on, depending on the program and when it opened and closed. And as soon as they give you their verdict, for some, they will ask you to do an interview. So it's important to also, start preparing for the interview and make sure that you're within the time period or in the time frame that they would want. Now, again, depending on whether they wanted an interview or not, and if you qualify for it, then if you're a successful candidate, then you should be knowing, for some should already be knowing by now in March, for those who are going to start their studies actually this year in September or October. And others, will start knowing in April, and so on and so forth. So you will already know by, let's say around May, June there. You might also be put on a reserve list. And in case somebody drops off from your program, then you potentially could be called to do that program. And then, you will have a period between around June all the way to September to prepare for your visa, for your transition, which is something that I also speak about. So if you want to, get into on my class on transitions, then this is also something that I will be announcing on this channel. So please feel free to go ahead and follow this channel and subscribe so that you can get to know more. And then, as soon as you're done with your, transition and visa and all these kind of things, then by around September, October, then you would need to come to the European continent to actually study. This program cannot be done online. It cannot be done on distance learning basis. You have to be present within the European continent for you to do Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters Program. Now, I have told you quite a lot of information for you to digest, and I would want to hear from you. If you do have any questions or comments, please leave them on the comment section below, and I'll be more than happy to interact with you. Follow me on my Instagram channel, as well as my WhatsApp and LinkedIn. And I would also want to invite you to also join my newsletter. My newsletter is where I will be sending everything on a monthly basis, and you can be able to see on my WhatsApp channel as well as LinkedIn. I usually post scholarships that are open, other scholarships, not just Erasmus, that are open for you to apply for. So you can be able to also, go ahead and check out that. And if you're also in Lisbon, I am now holding some community chats and so on and so forth. So because this platform is basically to help you study, integrate abroad, as well as, find opportunities that are relevant to you. And I am more than happy to assist you. It is no guarantee that you will get the scholarship. This is just to set you apart into a very good way of exactly understanding what is required of you. And going through this process, believe me, gives you enough tools for you to realize exactly how things are done within the European continent, and you can be able to even shoot for other scholarships beyond and everywhere else. So it is definitely worth your time and energy. So I do wish all the best for you, and I will keep doing these videos, obviously. So please keep tuned and share this video with somebody else who could benefit from it. And until next time, this video has been too long, and so I will sign off and invite you to watch other videos that I have done on this channel. And until next time, bye.